Everyone wants to leave a legacy of positivity in the world around them. Whether you are a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, a nonprofit executive director, or even a soon-to-be entrepreneur, one fact is always true. The easiest and most effective way to catalyze change in the world around you is through commerce and through business. But how do you do it? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Changemakers Collective, a place where people can come and get educated and encouraged and empowered to be the impact agent in the world around them. Brought to you by Silverback Ventures, Steff Thomas and Scott Woods have over 50 years combined experience helping companies and owners amplify the voice and multiply the impact of purpose-driven businesses. Join us each week as we discuss what it means to live a life of purpose on purpose.
Oh my word. Welcome back to the Changemakers Collective, brought to you by Silverback Ventures. We are incredibly grateful for those of you who are tuning in and kind of letting us go through this series on financial literacy. We're kind of conclude our conversation around how to talking about money by talking about how do you have the money conversations. I think it's super important as an individual, a family, to not shy away from those conversations. I know when I was growing up, talking about money was a total non-thing. Nobody had any idea how much money anybody was making. You never talked about it. And from being a financial person, I was like, well, why, who cares? Like, I would much rather our children understand what it means and what are the ups and downs. You know, when you're making, I remember going to the bank machine while I was in college and having $2.35 in there and going, okay, I guess I'm
not
eating Pop-Tarts for dinner.
Right. Ramen noodles.
Yeah. No, that was a real thing. We had 35-cent tacos. That also is how old I am. Mm-hmm. We had 35-cent tacos from Taco Bell on campus. So that was like a big treat for us to have tacos. But I think I say that to say we have to have open, honest communication around money.
Well,
and
Scott,
I'm not entirely sure why that's not a thing.
I think it's generational, right? So you were talking about how you grew up, but how I grew up, my father died when I was fairly young, but he had done all the finances, right?
Yeah,
so my mother then
didn't know what she was doing.
Right. For those that remember checkbooks, I mean, she didn't. She had to learn how to pay the bills. And I mean, man, we had some nice shoes and some nice clothes, but you open the refrigerator and we had like some cheese and ketchup. I don't know. I don't really know.
But now, fast forward, you and your husband and your family, you have a very comfortable and intentional conversation around money every week.
With
Tell us
us
about
and
that a
our
little
children.
bit. Yeah.
Right. We both got out of school. We had school debt. We get married. We buy a house. All the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we realized that we were very heavily in debt and it was very stressful. Some people don't care about debt, some people, but we didn't have.
Wait, pause. You should always care about debt.
Right.
If you're carrying debt, is the quickest way to eliminate your buying power.
Well, it does a lot of things, right? So eliminates buying power. It causes stress on marriages.
Yes.
If you have a business partner, it causes stress on the business partner.
Yes.
And it caused some health issues.
Yeah. I didn't mean to stop you.
Right. But I think all that's relevant.
Making sure that you're, again, if you go back to our last episode, managing your money so your money doesn't manage you. I think is super important. So please finish your story.
So we took a little financial literacy class, 6-week class, but we were intentional. So we, some things that
What was the tipping point where you were just like, oh man, we have got to do something?
It was probably when we were going to make a selfish purchase. And the person literally was like, yeah, y'all have got some debt issues and you can't have this. And that was the first time that we had limited buying power.
Yeah. Yep.
And so when we set we sat down and we wrote out for the first time as adults with children, sat down and wrote every single thing that we paid to and what the payoff was. And I was physically ill. And my husband said, oh, we got to get a plan together now. So again, we took a financial literacy program. They taught you to make a budget. Every single penny has to be allocated to somewhere. So what does that look like? If you're not paying something off, you first, we are tithers, so we give a 10% to our church, we give 10% to ourselves. And when someone said you got to pay yourself 10% before you pay your bills, for people that were living paycheck to paycheck, I couldn't even fathom what that would look like.
Yeah, it's so interesting you should say that, because I had the unbelievable opportunity to present a financial literacy class to a major college football program. And that topic came up of paying yourself first. Somebody brought it up in the audience, and I was like, so how often does that happen for you guys? They're like, we grew up where we got one meal a day. Like, what are you talking about? There's no way I could pay myself first. I got to pay my rent. I got to pay for my food. I got to pay for all that. So I don't want any of our listeners to get freaked out about, hey, I've got to pay myself first.
Right.
That is a mindset.
Yes, it was a psychological shift. So on that note, we couldn't make the psychological shift. We couldn't do that.
Most people can't.
Right. Immediately in the moment, right? I was the vice president of HR and he was the like a retail manager. We were making
decent money,
but we were still living paycheck to paycheck because we didn't understand how to manage our finances. Like you said, our finances were managing us. So someone told us about, and you've heard me say this before, the next time you get a raise, don't actually take the raise and put it into your day-to-day. Take ever how much that amount is and immediately put it in a savings account until you can work yourself up to 10% of what you bring home goes into an account. And it took us some time to do that.
Yeah, of course it does. But again, it's a mindset change to recognize that you don't need everything the marketers are telling you that you need.
Right. Here's another thing that we did poorly and now we do really well. So in this financial class, they told us, first of all, stop using your credit cards. Well,
interesting. Okay.
If you are living on your credit card, that's a good mindset to have. If you are using your credit card in a healthy, responsible way, much like we talked about on the first financial literacy podcast, then cool. But if you're buying your groceries because if you don't swipe the card, you're not eating that week, that's a problem.
Yes.
So, and we were, right? So we had to shift how we were swiping our cards. So we stopped using the cards. And the other part was only use cash for your spending. Again, it's unheard of. We live in a card swiping era, right? Your debit card. But when you are counting out dollars, it has a different psychological
effect. It feels
effect.
some kind of way.
Yeah.
When you're going to the coffee shop and they say it's $6 for this coffee, and you look in your wallet and you're going, seriously?
Right.
$6?
Well, okay.
But if you're swiping your card, you're not thinking about it. It's thinking about, it's managing your money instead of your money just managing you.
So here's what my husband and I did. We said, okay, each of you are going to have, I think we gave each other $50 a week, right? Or maybe for 2 weeks. I don't remember. It's been a while ago. But that was your money that you got to buy your coffee. It didn't count gas. It didn't count. This is your coffee, lunch, whatever. And the first week, and you've got a whole other week to go, and you have, okay, that's a hard conversation. Well, I've already spent all my money. Okay. So again, there's a mindset. So we didn't pay ourselves, then we paid ourselves. We knew we needed a budget. We weren't living by the budget. So my husband said, okay, we're going to follow the practice, right? We're going to meet every week. The amount of stress and terror that came into my psyche that we have to talk about money every week was scary for me.
Do you think Corey felt the same way?
I don't think he felt the same way for the same reasons. I think it was difficult to talk about the money every week for the reason of there's an accountability piece in there that maybe he and I weren't ready for.
Oh, that's interesting.
There was an emotional aspect behind it for both of us as well. And then just knowing that after you worked really hard and you didn't have money on your bottom line was a disparaging. Yeah. So all of those things went into play. And it created heated conversations with us.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. And I think what's interesting about that and what's cool about this continuing story is you got past that.
Oh, yeah.
If relationship advice by Scott, if you're not having honest conversations with your spouse about everything, there creates the opportunity for distrust,
right?
The opportunity for making assumptions that may or may not be true. But for someone who is perceiving whatever they're perceiving is their reality to them. If you don't counter that, whatever you perceive, oh, well, Scott took his $50 and it was gone in one day and now he wants a little bit more. So what's he spending all that money on? And it creates unnecessary tension. Whereas if you're having those open conversations all along, I know Amy and I, when we first got married, we printed out a calendar and we stuck it on our refrigerator and we wrote down every single thing that we spent money on. And, okay, we were living in Nashville, Tennessee, and we had to pay for parking at a couple different places. So oh man, if we parked a block away, we could get away with not paying for parking.
Right.
It's silly little things like that becomes opportunities to get a win as a family, where you're like, it's kind of like treasure hunting.
Right.
Right. When you're just spending, and you're not paying attention. I don't know about if it was for you. I know you well enough to know that this is how you guys think as well. You're saying, oh man, if we do this and we do this and we do this, we'll have X number of dollars at the end of the month and we can go on a trip.
And do this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're there now. Then we weren't. So, you brought up another, right. You brought up another thing. People ask me as I coach people, as we talk about, marriage or whatever, people ask me all the time, why can't I have my account and he has his? Well, that's a problem. And again, it's one thing to have a agreed upon amount that you spend. It is another to have a completely different siloed responsibility. So we still have these Friday meetings, but I am more like, ready for a budget meeting?
You're like, what?
All right, here we go. But we also talk to our kids about it, right? Like, here's the budget. Hey, by the way, did you realize that our light bill, it's very funny in my area. So I'm in North Carolina and you have a electricity bill and you have a gas bill. And in the summertime, your electricity bill is super high because you are running the air conditioner. Sure. And in the winter, your gas bill is super high because you turn on the fireplace or, you have the heat on. And so when we sit down with their kids and we're like, hey, we are 30% higher than all other people in their area. Turn the lights off, Well,
and it's super interesting that you have energy companies because we get a similar thing like your energy efficiency rating. And it'll say, hey, you're 30% higher than everybody else of comparable size house in your area. It immediately turns into this competitive thing. Like, okay, my wife works with somebody who she's like, oh yeah, I refuse to turn the heat on until it's like, January. And she's like, my house is 59 degrees. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, that's probably not good just generally,
right.
But it becomes a competitive thing.
We started this out by saying our parents didn't teach us mine. I can only speak for me.
No, that's true. That's true for me too.
My family did not teach me a daggone thing.
Because their family didn't teach them.
Oh, they didn't even speak about it.
It was such a taboo thing to have a conversation around. When I started going to college and I'm taking accounting classes, I'm having conversations with my parents and they're like, what do you mean? And like, we didn't know this. And it's not out of a desire to just not know. It's just nobody ever taught them that.
Right.
You know, both my parents were in science fields. My dad's a microbiologist. My mom was a nurse. Like they didn't have money conversations because their parents didn't have money conversations.
Right.
Their parents grew up in the Depression era where they were pinching pennies like nobody's business.
Right. It's a mindset, right? Mm-hmm. So funny you should say that because I have a acquaintance that grew up in the Depression time. And I am quick. If something expires in the refrigerator, I'm throwing it away right that second. Well, first of all, budgeting conversation. We are not a house that really eats leftovers. So I am the grocery person at our house. And so I go to the grocery store. My husband experienced sticker shock on a regular basis.
Hold on. For all of our listeners, Steff does not enter a grocery store ever. Ever. She does not go to the grocery.
I have groceries delivered.
We'll be sitting in a meeting and she'll be like, oh, I need to order my groceries. And I'm like, seriously? No, I got better things to do with my time than going to the grocery store.
I don't say. I think I just did this with Kristen, our podcast producer, the other day. I was like, oh, hold on. I got a delivery.
Yeah.
It's my groceries. Yeah.
You have not stepped foot in a grocery store in years.
Anyway, we digress. So one of the ways, a quick way to save, first of all, we cut out going out to eat. So again, using someone else's tagline, you live like no one else, so you can live like no one else. Well, we just didn't have the money. So I got very good at creating a menu for the week, and I ordered groceries so that they wouldn't expire. So we used everything that we needed.
Yep.
And I didn't go back to the grocery store if we ran out. We just used something else. So my friend, when we were talking about the person with the depression, the mindset then was, it's not really going to go bad. So you just keep freezing it, keep whatever you do. And I throw stuff away, right? So her mindset is, you can't throw it away. My mindset is buy responsibly. So that, you know, I think Sam's and Costco are great, but if you buy 20 pounds of meat and you don't have a freezer, that's not buying responsibly.
That's correct. And I think that's super important, especially for our grandparents and great-grandparents. Well, I remember when my wife's grandparents died and we were helping to clean out the house, we'd go up into the attic and there was like 12 toasters.
You don't need 12 toasters.
And I'm like, well, why would you do that? Well, in case one went bad, we had one. And I'm like, well, they said we were so used to not having anything that we felt like the minute we had enough money to buy one, we should buy 2 or 3. That way, in case we don't have any money down the road, we'll at least have these things in storage somewhere.
Right.
So you ended up with, soup cans that were 25 years old and stuff in the bottom of their freezer. You couldn't even tell what it was.
Right. Because it's so freeze and burn. So we started, but we realized very quickly, this is when we were like, okay, we're not going to go out and eat, and we're not going to go to the movies, and we're going to kill each other. Right? I mean, like, we cut out all the fun.
Yes.
So there was a period of time that we did cut back because we needed to. We started paying off things. So we took a 2-pronged approach. We paid aggressively to the things that we owed the least amount to, and we paid aggressively to the things that had the highest interest rate.
Smart.
So when we would pay off this tiny thing, we would just immediately, so it was $5. You know, you paid $5 a month. We would take that $5 and add it to the thing with the most interest rate until we met in the middle and really do a good job of only being in debt for our house. And we only carry, if we have to carry, 1 car payment at a time. So, you know, that's just a principle that we live by.
It's money management. Until you know, and everybody listening knows how we talk about making sure you know where you're going, a destination. Until you know how you're spending your money and correspondingly how you're spending your time. Like, I work in the business school at Clemson. Compound interest, the time value of money is talked about all the time. Last time I spoke there, I said, I want you guys to start thinking about the time value of money, not the time value of money, the money value of time. You get taught about the time value of money, compound interest. I want you to think about the money value of time, because that's the only commodity you can't get back. You can always make more money. You cannot make more time.
Right.
So as much as we're talking about managing your money, so your money doesn't manage you, you also are managing your time. You're exchanging time for money.
Right.
So if you say, going back to your conversation, hey, I've got to work 10 more hours in order to pay for those shoes.
Right.
Maybe those shoes aren't as appealing.
Or maybe you buy a different one.
Yeah.
Right.
Or if I say, you know what, I know I want to go to Tahiti and it's going to be $10,000. If I know where my dollars are going, I can say, all right, we're going to not eat out or not do these 2 or 3 things. And we're going to take that same amount of money that we normally spend because we sit down and have conversation around it. And we're just going to move it over here. Like Amy and I had planned to go to Italy for our anniversary. Her whole family's from there. COVID hit and totally derailed the whole thing. But we actually created a new bank account and we allocated money from our account. Every time we got paid, we pushed money in there, pushed money in, pushed money. So we knew by the time we were going to go, we'd have enough money to pay for it. If we hadn't been paying attention to what we were spending our money on, we would have never been able to even consider going.
Okay, Scott, I think, and this was a hard conversation that I just actually had with someone. We were talking about just a second ago about, you can't just cut off everything because you have to have a quality of life, right? But Christmas gifts. We have, first of all, educated conversation with their children all the time. So they know how to budget their money through how we budget ours. And so, and my mom one time just said, this is a harsh thing that you do with your children, but we stand by it. Every birthday and Christmas, we didn't make it their biggest experience of their lifetime. Now, we had special birthdays, right? When they were 16, we bought them cars. And we didn't carry a note. We bought them cars.
And it wasn't something you just did on a whim. You planned for it ahead of time for 16 years.
I sort of say, we knew exactly when they were going to turn 16. Actually.
Imagine that.
By their birth certificate. So, right. And, Christmas. There are some times, and we don't start in November planning Christmas gifts. We're having conversations all along the way. So my kid just, I'm sorry, son, that I'm saying this about you, but my son moved out and he moved out right before Christmas and his birthday is in February. Well, we spent an exuberant amount of money helping him move out, but we knew he was going to move out. So we had planned along the way. So for Christmas, I said, hey, buddy, you know that XYZ you
got? That couch you have?
Right.
Yeah. Consider it Christmas.
Right. And when your birthday comes up, you remember that too. And so the conversation with an outsider of AirPod said, how could you do that to your child? Like, it would have been better to go in debt than to, and I said, well, no. No.
Think about
it would
what
be
you
irresponsible.
Just said. Better to go into debt than to have your child not get whatever they want.
My child is 25.
Come on now. Come on.
Right. But it's a mindset, right? A long time ago, we made a decision that we would be honest with our kids so that they understood as an adult how to responsibly manage their money. Our kids do budgets. Our kids, we'll say, pull out your bank statement. What have you spent? How have you spent it?
Yep.
Because if we're not asking, who's going to ask them?
Well, and again, if you're managing your money, you know where it goes. You can plan for all the things you actually want to do.
Right.
Our daughter's getting married in April. We started saving for her wedding 2.5 years ago before she actually met anybody. Thankfully, she's getting married. She doesn't want an extravagant wedding.
Yeah,
but we had the money. We're ready to do that because we planned for it along the way.
Okay.
And we said, hey, you know what? We're going to be willing to sacrifice doing X, Y, Z because we know we're going to have to help with this.
But Scott, there's conversations along the way that I'm sure you've had with her.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
Yeah. We had the budget. We sat down the minute she got engaged and said, okay, we're ready to start planning. We said, okay, here's a list of all the things that we're doing. Here's what we're giving you. If it doesn't fit in this number, you're going to have to figure it out. And she kind of looked at me. I'm like, this is what it is.
Right.
You want something that's not in this number? Figure it out. And what's cool about that conversation is not that we pushed her into a corner. It's that to watch her and her fiance start having conversation around how can we maximize what we want to do, but minimize the cost. Because when you do the things, when you're managing your money, when you're knowing where your money's going and coming in, it allows you to do more. It allows you to, a budget, people think of a budget as a constraint. And, oh, if I'm on a budget, I'm never going to be able to do anything I want to do.
That's not true.
It's completely the opposite.
You get to do everything you want.
You have much less stress about going on that trip.
Right.
When you know, I've got all my money accounted for. I know when it's coming in. I know when it's going out.
I went on a trip and I paid for it almost a year in advance.
Mm-hmm.
And I paid for it a little at a time so that it wouldn't affect me. And it became a line item on our budget. And the amount of money that I was going to take on this trip, thank you to my mother and my sisters who went on a trip with me. I knew how much money I was going to spend. So when I came back, when my husband and I, Corey, sat down and had our budget meeting,
it was no harm, no foul.
No, hey, I put this amount of money on the credit card. I've paid that credit card. Okay. So there was no surprises. But I didn't wake up and say, I'm going on a trip and then swipe my credit card.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Here's another thing that, and then we're going to wrap up. My kid wanted me to co-sign on a loan, a large loan. And as a parent, I mean, Scott, I cried.
Yes,
right.
We had many conversations about that.
Because the answer was just no. I wasn't going to co-sign on the loan.
Corey and I had to tag team you on that one.
Yeah, because the realization was I would be 80 before the loan was paid off if he didn't. And bless his heart, he promised he was going to pay it all back, which I'm sure he would have. But I had to make a hard decision and communicate why I had to make a hard decision. And then me, Corey, and my child sat down and discussed. Now, he came back later and thanked us for it.
Yeah, because you figure it out.
Right.
You get gritty and you understand and get creative. Pressure breeds diamonds. And the more you can utilize the gray matter between your ears to solve problems and to figure out a way to manage your money so it doesn't manage you, the better off you're going to be. Don't think of a budget or any kind of financial planning tool as a constraint, but as an opportunity to do more. So yes.
Thank you for allowing me to give you my my budget journey. But really, as you live a life of purpose on purpose, be intentional with your budget.
Yeah. Manage your money so your money doesn't manage you.
Have a great time.
Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the Changemakers Collective. If you've enjoyed this episode, please help us grow our community by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or rating us on Spotify.
You can also find our podcast on YouTube, so you can come and leave us a comment over there as well. If you want support growing your business and scaling your vision, visit us at silverbackventures.org or connect with us on LinkedIn.
Thanks again, and we'll see you on our next episode.